How many trucks do you have in your fleet right now?
We have about 150.
When did you start?
We hired our first driver early 2021, late 2020.
That's insane. Hey everyone, Daniel here from the Truck Insurance Channel, and today we're interviewing Marc from AIFleet. Marc, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Marc El Khoury. I'm the co-founder and CEO of AIFleet. Thank you so much for having me, Daniel.
Glad to have you on, man. So just a few questions to go through today. AIFleet, that just sounds cool to begin with. So can you tell us a little bit about how it came to be, how you got into starting a trucking company, all that?
Sure. I used to work in management consulting. I used to be in the private equity and M&A space and just happened to work on a lot of trucking deals. Eventually worked on the IPO of one of the largest trucking companies in the US. And then after that, joined US Express as Chief Strategy Officer. US Express was at the time the fifth largest trucking company. After that, also went back to consulting and then moved to Europe and worked at a trucking company in Europe. And this is actually where I met my co-founder. And really, our view was that there's just a lot of challenges in trucking. What was clear for us is that there's just not a lot of technology. For us, though, we just didn't see any of the software truly solve the biggest problems that a trucking company solves, which it has, which is very high driver turnover and very low driver and asset utilization. My co-founder and I decided to build a technology company, however, that generates its revenue from trucking operations. And so AI Fleet, from that standpoint, is also a trucking company. We have, we hire our own drivers, they're company drivers, W-2 employees of the company with benefits. We have our own assets that we lease, with the goal of using our technology to optimize the assets and automate the operations.
That's a different approach than most, I would say.
After 2.5 years or so of doing this, we still think it's the right solution for the industry.
So increasing utilization also can help increase retention for the drivers. That makes a lot of sense. And I wish more people were doing that.
I appreciate it.
Driver turnover is it's just a nasty thing, like it's amazing how much there is in any industry, especially trucking. And so that's really cool that, like by just trying to be more efficient with your trucks, you can keep more drivers.
For us, our focus on the driver just makes sense. They are really the ones doing the hard work. And the retention, to your point, and just the driver turnover problem is so problematic also from an insurance standpoint and from an industry standpoint. We can blame the driver shortage as much as we want. With the average driver driving about 5 hours a day, it is likely that is not as much a shortage of drivers. It is an underutilization of existing drivers. The more drivers you put in, the lower the utilization of the total driver population, the higher the driver turnover is going to become, the more the odds of hiring unsafer drivers will become. We are really obsessed with the utilization problem because we feel like it could solve different prongs of the trucking problem. Yes, there is a driver shortage at current utilization levels. The question is, what would this driver shortage be if everybody drove an extra few minutes a day, not even hours, just an extra few minutes a day? The odds are you would no longer have a driver shortage.
I think driver shortage is maybe not 100% accurate. It's like driver utilization, asset utilization, and churn of drivers, right? Like there's always like I heard about a guy recently that went through like 6 different orientations before he stuck with a company. So that, if a short orientation was a week or two, that's months before he starts actually doing work as a driver. Like that's kind of crazy. How many trucks do you have in your fleet right now?
We have about 150. So we've been growing quite a bit, and it's been a tough market, of course.
When did you start?
We hired our first driver early 2021, late 2020.
That's insane. That gives me a little bit of heartburn because trying to find insurance for somebody growing that fast is like almost impossible, but that's really good.
It's hard to grow this fast, I agree. If you had to de-emphasize anything in trucking, it certainly will not be compliance and safety. And so
Yeah.
this has been our focus pretty much from day one in terms of how do we hire not a driver, but what we call an AI fleet driver, somebody who is genuinely proud of their safety record. And so from that perspective, we're very lucky with the drivers that we have. We want to keep growing with the best in class drivers out there.
I spent a good bit of time talking with recruiters and different fleets, even getting my hands involved in some of like recruiting efforts, like as much as I can anyways, right, with what I do. And it's tough, man. It's tough, but those drivers do exist, right? Like some,
Absolutely.
I guarantee you there's quite a few people that believe like, oh, no one's going to ever really care that much about their safety scores and like all their stats around what you guys can extract from like ELDs and everything. But there's different applications and stuff that can help you incentivize safety. What are some things you guys have done, or some of the things that like you've really been challenged by and you've found solutions for?
Always thinking about how can you get your asset utilization better has been one of the most challenging and most rewarding journey that me and the AIFleet team have taken. Because when you think about it, loads in trucking, whether it's your direct to customer load or if you're also taking some spot loads, they're actually not static. They're very dynamic. For us, one of the most rewarding journey has been when we moved from our first MVP algorithm that assigned loads to trucks to the iteration which we had around the end of last year, where we moved from assigning loads to drivers, which means now using the data, the learning of the data about specific driving behavior, and assigning that into the technology. We tried to connect to a lot of TMS software, and we just couldn't find anything agile enough for our needs in terms of something as simple as paying a driver, because we have a different model. We do not pay drivers just by the mile or just a percentage. We also layer in a driver salary because, as I said, drivers are employees. They need to get paid whether or not, honestly, whether or not they're performing well. It is our job to then coach a driver, potentially even terminate a driver if they're not a good driver. But to just say, hey, I'm not going to pay you this week because you didn't drive enough miles, I just don't feel like this is the right business model. And so what we ended up doing is really build a TMS from the ground up, a TMS that captures loads, assign loads. So we're really looking forward to automating order to cash. And where we're finding ourselves is that we almost have this, even though we're the only users of our own technology, we have this trucking operating system that assigns load to specific drivers based on their own competencies, and then automatically invoices a load and collects, and then understands if the load has been, if the cash has been collected or not.
That's really cool. Do you think you'd ever license that out and sell it, or would keep that within AI Fleet? It
It's
sounds like other people could really use that.
it's a good question. It's something that we toy around with. Our goal at AI Fleet is to scale the fleet. That is
Yeah.
really what we want. We want to have the best drivers, and we want to work with the best drivers out there. While we're interested eventually in thinking about licensing the technology, we also need to, we're a startup, focus is key. And right now, doing the two paths at the same time may not be the best use of our time. So we're always evaluating alternatives, but right now we're focused on our core mission.
It's amazing. Like everything you're doing is kind of like blowing my mind here.
Thank you, Daniel.
I've worked with customers from like all different sizes, right? And the amount of growth and the amount of time is really mind blowing. It would probably be much easier to focus on one, either the
Absolutely.
tech or the drivers, and you could easily fail the other by only focusing on one. So that's really cool. You're able to do both. That's impressive.
The full stack model that we're following, you just don't have the option to do anything in a not great way. You cannot just be average in technology. You cannot be average in operations. You certainly cannot be average in safety. And so you really have to do, every single department has to operate as best in class. It does, I talked a little bit about focus. In full stack, by definition, you're not 100% focused on one element. But what we want to build is the best tech trucking company.
Where do you see yourself in like 5 years?
Hopefully everything works out and we're one of the largest fleets in the country.